Ben back here for OddsChecker US. We've got a really cool card coming up here this Saturday, UFC Vegas 64, and we are going to get right into it. I'm always losing track of the Vegas numbers here. We're going to start on the main card. We've got Mark Madsen with a new opponent. He's taking on Grant Dawson, who's supposed to be Jakar Close. Close is out due to injury. And if you look right now on OddsChecker US, you can see that most of the books have Grant Dawson as anywhere from a 2-1 favorite, if not higher on some of the books. The comeback on Mark Madsen, plus 190. Which way are you going here, Ben? Because very interesting fight in the lightweight division.
Yeah, this one's tough because Grant Dawson, obviously coming into this fight, he's minus 220 now. And I think that's interesting because you see Madsen, he's obviously unbeaten, and he's looked really good. Even at his age, he looks good. He has good wrestling. He's got good power. But you look on Dawson's side, he has everything kind of the same, and if not a little bit better. He's got excellent chain wrestling, good jiu-jitsu. He has a lot of power. So, I mean, for me, this one's tough because I think Dawson will take this fight. But, being as the new opponent, Madsen's had a lot of training time for this one. I think Dawson wins, but I don't necessarily love the juice on him. I might look at it a prop later in the week, but I don't really know if I can pick a side here because Madsen's looked really good, but I mean, Dawson he's a decade younger than him and he's just looked really hungry. So really tough fight for me to pick. I wonder what you think.
I'll tell you a prop right now. The fight goes the distance. That's the prop here, in my opinion. It's a 3-round fight. Mark Madsen, if he wins, it's going to be by decision. That's how he won all of his fights. And if Grant Dawson wins, he doesn't typically finish a lot of his opponents. I know he did in his last fight, but Mark Madsen's undefeated for a reason. This is a former Olympian. But you're right. The age scares me off, and that's why he is the underdog in this situation here. I think you're kind of guessing with Dawson. Dawson's getting better every fight. I like the move to ATT that happened a couple fights ago. We saw that pay off in the Jared Gordon matchup. I know Dawson's been looking to fight for a while, so it's not like a case of him being on the couch. He's been in there working with guys like Dustin Poirier and a lot of the other outstanding fighters at ATT. I'm going to pick Dawson. I have a feeling, though, like we could see a close fight if it goes to the judges' scorecards here. Maybe worth it to throw a little bit on Madsen by decision because, again, I think that's how he wins. I think the real thing here is, can Madsen out-wrestle Dawson? I think it's possible, but I think if you're going by youth, you got to go with Dawson. I think, again, every fight, you're kind of betting on him to just look a little bit better here. I'm going to agree with the odds, but I think the play here is the fight goes the distance. Again, Grant, if you look at his career for the most part, not a ton of finishes. He does have some submission wins as well. He finished Jared Gordon, finished Leo Santos late in that fight, And then a lot of submission wins here, but he's fighting a guy who's a good wrestler. I just don't see him getting a submission win here. So I think the play here is the fight goes the distance. Not going to get amazing odds on that, but maybe you parlay that. But yeah, the pick's going to be Grant Dawson in this fight. Okay, next fight we're going to look at is in the flyweight division. Tagir Ulanbekov taking on Nate Maness. And right now the odds makers have Ulanbekov as the favorite at -180. +1. Actually, sorry, we should go to OddsChecker here. Let me just check the odds there so we're all up to date. Where are we here? Tagir. Why are they not showing it? It's here somewhere. Hold on, let me just do a little. There we go. Tagir Ulanbekov. Nate Maness. So you can see there, Tagir on some books as high as 2-1 over Nate Maness, who, by the way, will be making his flyweight debut. Which way are you going here, Ben?
I think you said it perfectly in one short, sweet phrase. Flyweight debut. We know what this fight's going to be. It's going to be a very wrestling-heavy matchup. Ulanbekov, Sambo champion. I mean, this fight's going to be on the ground a lot. And I'm really struggling to see how Maness is going to look at 125 because he's obviously got a bigger frame. He's 5'10" compared to 5'7", and that's not an easy weight to make. I'm really struggling to see how he's going to find success wrestling on the ground against Ulanbekov. So I think this is simply Ulanbekov for me. I don't think I'm going to overthink this one. It just sounds, unless Maness comes out and just proves me wrong and he just looks excellent at his at 125, I don't know. But I think Ulanbekov is going to have a much better time on the ground here for 15 minutes because he's the more natural 125 frame.
I mention this all the time with certain fighters switching weight classes. Go watch the weigh-ins before you bet on this fight, in my opinion, because I'm with you. I want to see how Maness looks. Now, I did speak to Maness. He's known about this drop to 125 for a while. He's done a test cut. Like, he feels like he's ready to go. So I'm not too concerned about him making the weight. The one thing I'm curious with is that power going to translate to 125 because he hit pretty hard at 135, and Ulanbekov didn't look so good in his last fight against Tim Elliott. I think, when it comes to these cases, whether it's a fighter moving the weight class or not, I tend to go with the fighter who's been a mainstay in that weight class. So the pick's going to be Ulanbekov. But I want to see how Maness looks because I think if you're getting him at +185, could be some value there. He could surprise in this fight because, again, like I said, he hits like a truck. We saw that knockout over Tony Gravely. If this stays standing, I think there's an opportunity for him to maybe get an upset here. So I really think from a betting perspective, it's a dog or pass situation. I think -215 is way too high for Ulanbekov. This isn't Umar Nurmagomedov. I know he's a Russian, but people can't get confused here. It's not going to be the same fight as that one. So again, I think it's a dog or pass, and I will take a closer look at Maness at the weigh-ins. I mean, obviously, if Maness looks terrible, I would say not do a bet on this fight and just stay away. But yeah, I think there could be some value on Maness. But saying that, like I said, I got to pick Ulanbekov as far as the mainstay in the weight class. So that's how I'm going there. Okay, next fight, Josh Parisian, Chase Sherman. Right now on OddsChecker, I know it was kind of like this on other books, but let me just have a quick look here. Sherman, whoops, hold on, didn't do that. Not very good on my screen sharing here today. Where are we here? Sherman. Chase Sherman is looks like he's the favorite at -125. The comeback on Parisian +110. Which way are you going here?
This one, if you watched the show last week, I feel like this is a very similar fight to the Jared Madera and the Waldo Cortez Acosta fight, except the odds are a lot closer this time around. So last time it was just I was taking Bandera because he was, a heavy underdog and it was a dog or pass. Didn't work out. He lost once again. And I kind of feel like we might see the same thing with Chase Sherman. Coincidentally, that is who his last win was against and his only win since his second stint in the UFC. Chase Sherman just has not found his footing yet, kind of like Bandera. And, he did find the knockout in the third round over him last time, but I don't know. He doesn't look like a UFC caliber fighter, in my opinion. He got that second try and he was able to win against Villanueva, I believe, in his first fight back. But since then, it's been nothing. He's 1-5, 1-6 in his last 6 fights, I believe. And I really feel like Parisian, if he can get his wrestling going, maybe that's his path to victory here. Because if he can get Sherman down, I don't expect Sherman to look good off his back, but I really think Parisian has the better chance of winning this fight just from what we've seen from him versus what we've seen from Chase Sherman lately. So he's a very slight underdog. So I'm just going to say dog or pass here again. But this fight it's just another toss up, kind of like that Cortez Acosta fight for me. So nothing heavy for me on the side here.
I feel the same way. Two really inconsistent fighters, if we're being honest here. Two fighters who were kind of holding on for their jobs. I'm with you though. I like Josh Parisian. I really like what he did in that last fight against Alan Badeau, where he's able to persevere and get the finish in that one. We haven't really seen a lot of that out of Chase Sherman. And here's the thing with Sherman as well. A lot of the times when he's in those fights, he's the bigger guy, or has been able to use his reach a bit. I mean, Josh Parisian's the exact same size as him. So I just don't think Sherman's going to show anything that Parisian hasn't seen. They're about the same age as well. I'm almost tempted to do, like you said, their dog or pass, but honestly, I just want to stay away. Both these guys have been so inconsistent. I don't want to bet any money. I don't have any investment in this fight. I don't even want to do like a fight doesn't go to the scorecards, because we've seen both of these guys go to a decision. So I'll pick Parisian, but I want nothing to do with this fight. I just want to sit back and enjoy it, and hopefully the best man wins. But the pick's going to be Josh Parisian in this fight. Okay, co-main event, really interesting one in the welterweight division. We've got Neil Magny taking on Daniel Rodriguez, and right now the odds makers have Neil Magny as the slight favorite at -115. The comeback on Daniel Rodriguez is +100. Who are we going with here?
This one's tough for me. I really want to see how Daniel Rodriguez does against someone with Magny's length, because when you see Magny winning fights, it's usually because he's really excellent at using his length. I mean, that 80-inch reach versus that 74-inch, he's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. He's very used to having that reach advantage, and he's very good at using it. But Daniel Rodriguez, he has looked excellent lately, and I really don't want to pick against him here, because, his last few fights, Kevin Lee, Mike Perry, Li Jianglong, those are all excellent wins, even though his last one was a split decision win, a little bit controversial, but he still looks pretty good for the opponent in that fight. But I don't know how he's going to deal with such a significant reach disadvantage. So if he can overcome that and Magny's size, I think he's got a pretty good shot. So I want to back him just as the underdog in this spot, but I wish the number was a little bit better on him. So I don't really have anything strong in this fight. I really don't have a lot of strong predictions on this card.
Mhm.
A lot of them are really back and forth. So I don't know. This one is another toss-up for me. Hard for me to really go strong either way.
Okay, this is one of those fights. Well, first off, let me just mention, and I think I agree with most people, I don't think Daniel Rodriguez won his last fight. However, I will give him a pass because that was a switch up on 24 hours notice against Li Jingliang. So got to cut him some slack. Plus, he was coming off an injury and all these other things as well. Here's the thing. I think this fight plays one of two ways, and you can get creative with the props if you want to. I think Rodriguez, if he wins, it's probably going to be by knockout. Neil Magny's been clipped a lot of times. He's been finished early in fights. And Max Griffin had some success against Magny early in his fight as well. I think Rodriguez hits harder than him. I think it's possible we could see a Daniel Rodriguez first round knockout. So maybe you look at the Rodriguez by knockout prop. However, how many times have you bet against Neil Magny for him to win a decision? It happens all the time, right? So, and like you said, Magny does a very good job of bringing fighters into his world, using that reach, neutralizing the stand-up. We've seen Magny win fights that maybe aren't as exciting, but he still gets it done. So I think the play here, if you're going to do it betting-wise, would be Magny by decision, Rodriguez by knockout. I think that's the way to go. I suppose Rodriguez could win a decision. We saw him win a decision in his last fight, but I think with the way this guy hits, I could definitely see a finish in this one. But you got to go Magny here. Level of opposition, a little bit bigger in this fight. The reach, he's got a, 6-inch reach advantage, I think. My math's correct on that one. I think Magny probably wins this fight. And I think he's, despite him, not ever reaching that contender status, he's still a guy that seems to put out these guys on the come up. So pick's going to be Neil Magny by decision. But like I said, would not shock me in the least if we see if we're talking next week about a Daniel Rodriguez knockout here. So pick's going to be Magny.
I will say though, although he still had a camp last fight, obviously, to get all that screwy matchmaking that happened literally like the day before, and then to still come out and win, even though, like you said, it was controversial, it was a very close fight. But I mean, he still looked really good for an opponent that he had no idea how to really he wasn't planning for him. So I mean, that was a tough fight to come out there and still look really good in. But yeah, this another tough one because Magny's just so good at utilizing that reach. So.
Tough fight, like the odds indicate. Like I said, it's very close. And again, you're not some books you're getting plus money on Rodriguez, some you're not. So it really sort of look at those props, I think would be the way to go. Okay, main event. We've got Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Lemos. And right now on OddsChecker, we have Amanda Lemos as the underdog at around plus 180. Marina Rodriguez about a 2-1 favorite here. Which way are you going in the main event?
I think I'm actually going to take Lemos just because I like how much power she has. I think I saw something about that she had like a record 5 knockdowns in strawweight, and that's like a record apparently, which I mean is surprising, but not necessarily when you consider that usually when you see these women's fight, it's not like they're the hardest hitters you've ever seen. But she is a very hard hitter, and she has a lot of power. I think that what I expect to be a close fight at plus 175 odds, I like having the harder hitter because you see those close rounds come down to who landed more damage, who landed the bigger shot. Because a lot of times you hear like the commentary say, "Oh, that was the biggest hit of the round," and then they end up usually taking that round because in those close rounds, it's going to come down to who had that big shot, and Lemos usually has that big shot. So I think at plus 175 odds, you're getting a pretty good return on someone who will probably have a close fight against Rodriguez here. So I'm going to take Lemos just for her power advantage in this matchup, and I like the fact that we're getting pretty good odds on her too.
I get that perspective for sure. That's something I definitely considered when looking at this matchup here. But you got to look at the fact that Marina Rodriguez has never been finished in a fight, and she's fought some really good oppositions. Her only loss, period, is a split decision loss to the current champ Carlos Esparza in a fight that some people felt like she won. So we could be talking about an undefeated fighter here. And I mean, these are top fighters in the weight class. Now they do have a common opponent in Michelle Waterson Gomez. Lemos obviously finishing her by submission. Rodriguez going the distance in that fight, but I just think Rodriguez is the decision machine here. I mean, she does have the one win over Amanda Ribas. We know she's got some stand-up as well. Neither fighter has much of an advantage. They're both 35. They're both, I think Rodriguez is a little bit taller here. They both have a 65-inch reach and a little bit more experience for Rodriguez. But I just think Rodriguez is probably going to win a decision here. How many women's fights have we seen over the last bit, especially the main events that have gone the distance, right? Like Grasso, Yan Shonan, it keeps happening here. And I think we're going to see it in this fight as well. I think Marina Rodriguez, maybe not the prettiest fight, but I think she'll avoid whatever power Lemos is bringing to the table here. And I think she'll just win a decision. I think minus 210, you could play that as well, but I think Rodriguez by decision is probably the way to go. The other thing is Lemos has not had a ton of 5-round experience. I know Rodriguez has, so that's another reason to like her here. But I suppose we could be talking about a Lemos knockout next week, but I don't know. I think Rodriguez is too smart. In some ways, she got snubbed for a title shot, right? Like I think if you're looking on merit, she probably should have got the title shot over Weili Zhang, considering Zhang lost the fight 2 fights ago, whereas Rodriguez hasn't lost in a while and lost a split to the current champ, as opposed to getting decisive loss like Weili Zhang did. So gonna go Rodriguez by decision here, and feel pretty good about that one. So we'll see what happens for next week.
Now, I also agree, but I think that there's an interesting. I don't necessarily think she has to win by knockout to win this fight. Just if she can have the bigger moments in the fight. So that brings up an interesting idea that I had. Lemos by decision is actually plus 650. The book expect her, if she's gonna win, to get the knockout, and I actually agree with you. I don't think she's gonna finish Rodriguez. I think if she would, it would be a close, ugly decision. So she's plus 650 to win by decision. Rodriguez is plus 150 to win by decision. So there is a pretty good kind of double bet there where you could actually bet both. Now, you wouldn't necessarily come out on top if Rodriguez does win the decision, so that's kind of the knock. But you would at least cover yourself. If Lemos was going to pull out the decision, then you'd hit big on that one. So it's kind of a middle a little bit, but you could put...
Or just take the fight goes the distance. Like, honestly, I don't think Marina Rodriguez is going to get finished in this fight. So, kind of like the Grant Dawson and Madsen fight, just play the fight goes the distance. That we don't have to worry about bad judging or anything like that. And like I said, these two are not... I mean, Lemos finishes a lot, but it's against lower opposition here. Like, I'll just quickly mention this, right? Like, she beat Miranda Granger, who, is no longer in the UFC. Anyway, I don't think it's in the UFC. Souza, I think, is in the UFC, but nothing crazy. Well, actually, anyway, it was a decision anyways. Ruiz was a first-round finish who's not exactly lighting the world on fire, but you look at this, they're fighters that are, that are a bit better. They're decision. Second round finish over Waterson, but she's on her way out as well. She's kind of pushing the age limit there. So I think that might not be a bad play as the fight goes the distance. So there we go.
Fight goes to decision. I was just going to say is actually plus 100 right now.
There you go.
There's actually
gave yourself the headache
and inside the distance. So
there we go.
Prop there.
Cool. All right. Enjoy the fight card this weekend. Of course, we'll be back next week for the big UFC 281 card from New York, the big middleweight title fight. So make sure you tune into that. Hope everyone has a great weekend and best of luck on your bets. For myself, for Ben, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.